I'm in the wind. I'm sure I'll be dead by tomorrow. But I need to let people know. This thing is loose. I'm an agent with the United States government. And my station is Black Site 7. I won't tell you my name. It would probably be useless to you. But this was not how I saw my life going. I spent 6 years in Iraq, signed up right after high school, and nothing like the recruiter told me it would be. I spent 8 years in the blistering heat, hauled my fair share of comrades out of firefights, and saw a lot of shit over there that would make normal people go crazier than I might be. I've had camel spiders crawl on me while I sleep, watched friends I've known since basic get decapitated through binoculars, burned houses full of insurgents and civilians to rubble. And when I was done, they gave me my papers, thanked me for my service, and sent me home. I know I have no right to complain. Many guys didn't make it back. But home was worse. I'd spent the last 8 years in an active combat zone, and now I was just supposed to come home and go back to civilian life? I spent 3 months home, 2 of those months spent in a shitty apartment because my parents couldn't handle the night terrors and the jumpy marine that had come home before I knew it wasn't going to work. Every car horn, every barking dog, every firework rattling in the street had me reaching for my gun and breaking into a sweat when I couldn't find it. Before TJ found me, I was considering suicide. Then one day, he's just at my door with that big shit-eating grin he'd always worn. "You look like shit, House. Let's go get some pancakes. I've got something I want to discuss with you." TJ was my platoon leader in the sandbox. They called him the comedian because he was always smiling, always cracking jokes. He was a functional sociopath. I guess most of us were, but I always admire his ability to laugh in the face of such fucked up shit. TJ was not his real name, but since he's still in this shit that I've left behind, I figure the best I can do is not remind them that he's why I'm here. He took me to breakfast, and in the back of a crowded Denny's, he laid it all out for me. "You've got it bad, House," he said through a mouthful of pancakes. "But that's okay, cause old Uncle TJ has the cure for you. I've got a new job, familiar work that might interest you. Ever hear of Two Trees?" I had. Two Trees was a government institute that, on the surface, did a lot of medical research and clinical trials. Underneath though, they did wet work, and anyone who was involved in covert ops knew about Two Trees. We'd worked with him a few times in Iraq, and their guys were spooky, to say the least. "You're looking at the new head of Black Site 7. I furrowed my brow at him. "Congratulations. Should I know what that is?" "Of course not. It's a closely guarded government secret, and Two Trees is paying me a small fortune to keep it that way too. Problem is, I need someone to curate the site for me. Someone with military training, experience with firearms, and a need for some normalcy. Know anyone like that?" I knew what he was asking, but I didn't think I was the one he was looking for. I hadn't found work in the 3 months I'd been back, and most of that because I couldn't settle into anything. I was constantly jumpy, constantly on edge, and that makes it hard to find work. No one wanted you doing security work or mining a gas station when every backfiring car was an enemy combatant. What would happen if I had an episode inside a government facility? I shook my head. "Thanks, but no thanks. I don't think I'm fit for duty the way I am." "Yeah, I thought you might say that," he said, putting a metal tin in front of me. "Your medical files read like a benchmark for PTSD. Night terrors, irritability, being on edge, those irrational bouts of anger that got you thrown out of your parents' house," he added with a little smirk. I felt defensive. "How do you know about that?" "You'd be surprised what my level of clearance will get you. Your therapist's records were about as hard to get as a beer at a gas station." Well, I've got a little present for you, House. Welcome to the rest of your life, he said, indicating the silver case. The case was as big as an Altoids tin. There were no markings, no filigree or needless ornament, and a distinctive surgical look. I slid my hand toward it, but it didn't seem to want to touch it. Every sense I had told me to walk away now, not to touch it, and just walk away from this unassuming little case. I forced my hand to pop it open instead. Inside was a pair of pale gray gel caps. What are these? These are the answers to your prayers. 2 of these a day will make you feel as calm and clear as you did when you were a mere lad of 18. No more jumping at every noise. No more reaching for your gun when a dog barks or a car backfire. Just peace of mind. I imagine now that this is what Mephistopheles sounded like when he spoke to Faust. What's the catch? These pills are only available through the Two Trees Corporation. Employees who agree to be part of the clinical trial get them free of charge. But they're only available to employees, he said with a little grin. Take them. Take a day to feel the effects, and let me know what you think. Call me tomorrow and give me your answer then. Enjoy a night of freedom, then make your decision. I took the pills home with me, and after a few hours of staring at them, I took them with some vodka. The effects were instantaneous. If you've never had PTSD, then it's hard to explain. But it's like having a loose wire that someone fixes, and then you go back to the way you were. My anxiety melted away, my fear dissipated, my unease and dread were gone, and my anger seemed like a distant memory. I was sitting in a shitty apartment, surrounded by the trappings of my depression and my anxiety. And suddenly, I felt like I had before I'd boarded a bus in 2003 and headed out to basic training. I was finally comfortable in my own head. And it was like coming back to a comfortable place after years of running from danger. After the first good night's sleep I've had since shipping out, I called TJ and told him I was in. One question, I asked. What's in the pills that make them work so well? He was silent for a long minute before saying, You don't really want to know, House. Pack your shit. There will be a truck to move you to West Virginia in the morning. And that's how I came to work at Black Site 7. I must have looked like a junkie by the time I pulled up in front of my new home. I didn't have much. The truck had taken all of 4 boxes into the deep woods as I followed in my old compact. The journey took about 16 hours, and by the time I got there, I was starting to feel the anxiety creep back in. I became angry at how slow the truck was going, afraid that this whole thing was a trick so they could kill me, and found myself wanting to die when I saw TJ standing at the gates of what looked like an old military checkpoint. He flashed that knowing smile and handed me another silver case. I dry swallowed the pills without a word and felt the inner peace warming back across my brain. Then, he showed me to my new quarters. It was a little bunk room with a bunk bed, a kitchenette, and lockers for clothes. There was a foot locker for my personal stuff, and I was told to keep the space clean. I would be responsible for the site and its security. He showed me a little terminal of the bedroom with monitors and camera feeds. The compound had cameras all over the place, but I appeared to be the only person actually here. The site is mostly for storage these days, but it's what we get up here to at night that may interest you. That's why you're here. I need someone I can trust to watch this site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 4 times a year, you'll be relieved for a week of R&R somewhere. But other than that, this is your world. That didn't bother me. I had no problem being alone. But I was curious as to what I was doing out here. What am I looking for exactly? TJ pointed at 3 buildings on the camera. Keep nosy people out of there. Lethal force is authorized. And don't ever go in there, or I'll have to show you where Black Site 8 is. He said it with a smile, but the smile didn't cross his eyes. Don't worry about being vigilant though. If anything bigger than a mouse moves out there, the alarms will let you know about it. He told me that my food would be delivered once a week, mostly MREs, and I could order anything I wanted from the terminal in the living quarter. There was a workout yard near the second building, and I could move through the woods if I chose, as long as I took my phone with me so I could get alerts from the console. "By the way, hand me your phone," he said. And when I did, he put it in his pocket and handed me another one. "That's your new phone. I'll take the keys to your car too and put the money from it in your account. This is your Life Now house. So, don't take this job lightly. If you leave the grounds, we'll know. If you try to update social media or try to tell anything on the outside about what you've seen here, we'll know. If you want to marry or feel like you need out, arrangements can be made after your first 5-year tour. As far as anyone is concerned, you no longer exist. Don't be stupid. Put in your 5 years, and then we'll reassess your position." He grinned again and punched me in the arm. "And lighten up. This will be the easiest 5 years of your life." From that point on, I was an employee of Two Trees. TJ had been right though. The first 5 years flew by. I lived on the side, spending my days working out or watching TV, playing the latest video games and watching the newest movies, and guarding this black site in the middle of the woods. I never tried to get into the warehouses. I had been a soldier long enough to know how to check my curiosity, and the scares were minimal. The food kept coming. The pills that kept me in my right mind kept coming. And it was pretty peaceful all told. The alarms, to my knowledge, only went off 3 times in that first year. In 2 of those times, it was a deer who had wandered too close. The first time it happened, I had slunk out in a panic, service pistol in hand and boxer shorts flapping, as I rounded the first warehouse and drew down on a very surprised doe who darted away before I could draw a bead on her. It was kind of a special moment for me. I had never seen a deer up close. And as it ran away, I was glad I hadn't shot it. The third time, it had been a person. The first person I'd seen in 3 months. I had been sitting at the console one night, watching the latest Marvel Avengers movie. I think it was Infinity Wars, when the alarm went off. I paused the movie, expecting to see a deer or a bear on the monitor. But my eyes went wide when I realized it was a person. He had a crowbar, and he was attempting to pry the door open. He must have come out of the woods, because if he had driven up, I'd known about him much sooner. It had been 3 months since I'd seen a person. Not since Agent Datri had come to relieve me for a week of R&R in September. And the idea of seeing a person not connected with Two Trees made me feel weird. Even when you were on R&R, you went to a company resort or a company place full of company people. So you didn't get a little too drunk and talk about all the stuff you did for your country. I took my pistol outside and crept up on him in near silence. When my foot came down on an extra crunchy stick, he turned his head and noticed me, raising the crowbar as if to attack. The gun went off without me even having spoken to him, a reflex taking over and dropping the threat before it could become a real danger. His left eye popped like an overripe fruit, and he fell down on the hard December ground. I called TJ, and he and some other men in suits came to assess the damage. You did just right, House. He was a threat to the facility and needed to be put down. Don't think for a minute that this reflects poorly on you. What will you do with him? I asked. TJ smiled. Immediate disposal, House. Think you've got the stomach to help us? I found that I did. And once he was doused in gasoline, we set him ablaze on the edge of the property. They gave me an extra week of R&R, and when I came back, TJ must have decided that I was worthy of being brought in on certain things. The alarms went off a week after I came back, and I saw TJ stepping out of a black car and waving at me. I slid my shoulder holster on and went out to meet him. As I approached the vehicle, 2 other men in suits were bringing a man with a bag on his head out of the car. He was wearing scrubs, his hands bound behind his back, and I could hear him crying beneath the black hood he wore. I looked between them, waiting for an explanation and TJ threw an arm around me and walked me towards the spot where we had burned the trespasser. "House, I think it's time that we bring you in on the second reason for this black site. You see, sometimes two trees has assets that need to be eliminated. The black sites are often used for these purposes, but it's always the responsibility of the site's caretaker to carry out these eliminations." "Why wasn't I told about this before?" I asked, feeling indignant. "I'm no murderer." "Oh, well, those combatants in Iraq will be glad to hear that, won't they?" he said, almost nightly. "That was war, TJ. This is murder. Think of this as a war too, House. These people are the enemy, and they need to be eliminated for the good of public safety. It's part of the job, House. A part I know firsthand that you're capable of." They put the man on his knees in the middle of the burned spot, and he knelt, praying under the hood as we stood around him. "Put him down, House. That's an order," TJ said. I looked at him icily. "And if I won't?" The two men with him drew their guns, and TJ grinned. "Then I'm afraid that these men will have to execute both of you. Come on, House. Don't throw this away over some nobody. He's no different than the man outside of the warehouse." I wish now that I'd just let them shoot me. But I guess if I had, you'd never know about any of this. Instead, I drew out my gun and put a bullet in his skull, glowering at TJ as his buddies put their guns away. "You made the right choice, House. Who knows? You might not have to do this more than a dozen more times in the next 4 years." I executed an asset a month after that. They were mostly people in scrubs, people in lab coats, doctors, researchers, people who had likely tried to steal from whatever facility they worked at. They were men and women, old men and scared 20-somethings. I never bothered to learn their names. They were just assets to be eliminated, and I became kind of numb to the process. We burned them afterward. Gasoline and fire made it like they were never there, and the spot near the edge had a charred look to it after a while. At the end of the 5 years, TJ came to see me and asked me if I wanted to re-up. "What happens if I walk away?" I asked. I was eating dinner when he had come by, and he had sat down to have a plate of fettuccine with me. Given my free time, I had learned to do a good number of things I couldn't before. I became a pretty good cook, learned to play the guitar, read every book on the shelf I had brought to hold them, and there was a chainsaw out back along with some sculptures I had made with it. I couldn't say I hadn't enjoyed my time here, the killing aside, but I was curious to know if they'd actually let me leave. "You'll be allowed to return to the real world, your bank account fuller and your retirement substantial. Just what you say out there. I'd hate to have to bring you back for your replacement to put a bullet in." I ended up signing up for another 5 years. I shouldn't have done that. I was 8 years deep when he brought the girl in the black back to me. It was 2 a.m. and I started to think about bed when the alarm went off. I looked for TJ, but he was not the one who climbed out of the Blacktown car. This guy had his hair slicked back, and his suit was an immaculate blue pinstripe. He did not wave to me, and I felt a sense of dread as I grabbed my gun. Somehow, I expected TJ to be under that back this time. The man's name was Stein, and he didn't have TJ under the back. What he did have was a kid with a thick black hood over their head. I couldn't tell at first if it was a boy or girl. They were dressed in baggy clothes, Salvation Army rags that a homeless guy would be embarrassed to wear, and they were crying loudly under their hood. 2 familiar men had the kid, and they looked stoic about the whole matter. Stein didn't say anything, just led the procession over to the charred spot and put the kid on their knees. When he made no move to remove the hood, I did it myself. He winced, but didn't stop me. This was my place, my job, and I had garnered a reputation for being a professional. A reputation I was about to ruin. The back came off, and the little girl's tear-streaked face came into view in the harsh fluorescence. Her hair was cut short, dirty blonde, and hacked to pieces, and her face was covered in bruises. Her nose looked broken, and her lip was split, the blood trickling like red tears. I sighed, looking at Stein as the gun stayed at the ready. What the hell is this? Stein looked surprised. It's an asset. TJ said you handle these for us. Handle the asset. This is a fucking kid, barely old enough to wipe her own ass. What could she have possibly done? Stein's face was stony. Yours is not to question, soldier. Liquidate this asset, or be liquidated. I looked at the kid, her whole face shaking as the tears and blood fell, and thought about watching her head pop like a grape. This wasn't some scared adult, some stoic old man, some praying woman, or some cursing thing with sallow skin. This was a kid. I had killed many people, more in my time here than I ever had during the war. But I was still a professional. And professionals had standards. No, I said. Stein blinked. What? No, I won't kill a kid. Do it yourself. The two men drew their guns, and I was transported back to the first time. I was standing there, 2 days after Christmas, watching TJ grin and tell me the rules. Now, I was standing in the woods, the autumn leaves carpeting the ground, feeling sure they would soon drink both my blood and the girl's. I will give you till the count of 3 to kill the girl. After that point, you will both be executed. 1. Their guns were unwavering, but so was my resolve. 2. I closed my eyes, preparing to die. 3. I heard a sound like wet concrete splitting open. It was followed by a high-pitched scream and a pair of bodies hitting the ground. I opened my eyes and saw Stein running towards the town car, and the two men who'd been holding me at gunpoint bleeding out on the ground from large grisly neck wounds. As I watched Stein run, a rust-red something snapped out and caught him in the back of the neck, dropping him inches from the town car. I looked back in the direction the thing had snapped out from, and saw that the girl was now a mass of red spikes, segmented like spider legs. Her face had split long ways, forcing her face into a grisly sideways maw. The area between the teeth glowed a deep red, and I could see the eyes on the girl's face blinking erratically, the two halves of her smile grinning at me. I figured, for the second time that day, that I was going to die. But she scuttled off into the woods instead, walking on her strange spider appendages as she crashed through the trees. I stood there for a few minutes, not quite sure I believed I wasn't dead. And then, I started running too. I crashed through the woods for hours, running in no particular direction, sure that any minute, the creature or a helicopter from 2 trees would fall on me and either rip me apart or blow me away. I had blundered off with no wallet, no cell, just my gun and the clothes I'd been wearing. Was the phone how they tracked me? TJ hadn't said as much, but maybe. When the ground went out from under me, I felt the air drop out of my lungs. I fell 5 feet off a mud ledge and skinned my hand. My knees hurt where I had landed on them, and I realized pretty quickly that I had fallen onto a road. If I thought it might be an illusion, the headlights that pinned me to the ground a moment later left me with little doubt. Thankfully, the truck stopped, and after a short conversation with the driver, he offered to take me into town. That's how I came to be here, in this dingy hotel, that just happens to have a computer in the lobby. I sold the gun for about $500, and I figure I'll disappear as soon as I'm done recording this. They know I'm gone by now, but I don't know if they think I'm dead, or if they think I fled. Either way, they'll find me, I'm sure. I'm more worried about that little girl that's on the loose in the woods, and whatever it is that's living beneath the surface of her skin. If you see a young girl with short, dirty blonde hair, do not approach her. I don't know if she killed those men to get away, or if she killed them because she wanted to. But she should be considered dangerous if you encounter her in the wild. And if a man from 2 trees offers you a job, do not become the curator of Black Site 7. The job is definitely not all it appears to be.